Welcome to Daddy Issues. Conversations with Dads. A podcast from Fathers and Families Center of Indianapolis, Indiana. Hey, welcome in everyone. Happy 2024. My name is Jason Acquisto, and with me as always is the President and CEO of Fathers and Family Center, Larry Smith. Larry, how's it going?
Going well, back refreshed, renewed, and ready. What about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I know this is way past your bedtime. As a senior, you like to be in bed right after dinner, so I appreciate you being up with me late. Listener, it is 8 o'clock, by the way. So
8 p.m. Yes.
So great. Yeah, it's been a good start to the year for the Acquisto household. And I was going to ask about your kids and grandkids, and that's a great introduction to this episode's topic. How's it going being a grandpa?
Well, I appreciate that. So my eldest is doing great. We'll celebrate 10 years of marriage this year in August. Cannot believe that. It's just phenomenal. And she's doing great. My son-in-law is doing great. My 18-year-old is in her second semester of college at Howard University. Very, very excited about that. She's a little bit cagey when it comes to grades. She assures me that everything's fine. So, she reminds me that she's 18, and so I just have to take her word for it. My son, the 16-year-old, is just killing it academically and with show choir. And then the grandbabies, the stars. My grandson, the one who made me a grandfather, will turn 4 in March. He's great. Just very. He's a very, very calm child. Doesn't get too excited. And then my granddaughter will be 3 in June. She's a little bit more excitable, but the funny thing is, they'll go to my son's show choir concerts and so on, which are not short, and they'll sit there and just kind of watch, and they are not fidgety. They're not trying to run up and down the aisles. So that's great. That's great. How's dad life for you?
That's great. Listen, dad life for me is pretty good. My son is in his second year at University of Louisville, and he takes a lot of pride in his academics, and we couldn't be happier about that. And we had a great time at the holidays and a good long visit. And so he's doing good.
Nice.
So daddy issues, we kind of alluded to it here, young grandparents. And as I mused on young grandparents, a big part of it is at some point somebody was a young parent. Now, young grandparents, you were either a young parent yourself or your son or daughter is a young parent, right? Kind of there are different paths to becoming a quote unquote young grandparent. So you are definitely, you have a young vibe. You're definitely not an old grandpa like we all, think of as old people.
Yeah. I'll be 54 in March.
54. Okay. That's a young grandpa. How does it make you feel?
Well, it's interesting. I guess my first response is I never wanted to use that term, grandpa, grandfather. I had a discussion with my daughter initially when I found out that she and her husband were pregnant, and I said I want to be Big G. I didn't want any part of anything grand. And she.
Did you say Big Chief?
Big G. Big G.
Oh, Big G. Gotcha.
Yes, Big G. And she promptly vetoed that.
No.
And I said, I don't get to choose my own. No, you don't. At least not that one. I said, okay. So I thought a little bit more. I said, well, how about G Paul? And she said, okay, you can be G. And so that's who I am, G Paul. It's interesting. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was a grandmother very young. To your earlier point, she got married right out of high school. And so she was a young mother. And then my mother, her eldest, she had 3 daughters biologically, a son whom she adopted. And my mother was married right out of high school. And so that made my grandmother a grandmother even younger than I am. She was a grandmother in her 40s.
Mm,
When I look back on that, I think, okay, well, I'm actually older than she was, which is weird to think of. But I really don't think of myself. And of course, times have changed. They talk about 50 is the new 30 or whatever. So I feel young, thank God. I feel great, and I've got energy for my grandchildren, which is
mhm.
very important to me.
Yeah. I was reading the average age of becoming a grandparent is now trending towards about 50.
50, yeah.
My mother, do some quick math, my oldest brother was a young parent. He was 20. So in
Mm,
1981, my niece was born, and my mother would have been 43.
mm,
So very young. And
yes,
I remember I would have been 15. So I became an uncle. Either way, my mom, like you, she said, I'm not a grandma. That won't fit. So her name is Patty, and she
hmm.
became Pat Pat.
Pat Pat. I like that.
Yeah, it
That's
was
good.
Pat Pat.
That's
And
good.
many people in my family still call her that who grew up as her grandchildren.
Mm,
And it carried all the way through to older grandchildren. And I think part of it is that stigma of like, oh, I'm not old.
right,
Um, so
right.
was that a transition for you? How that play out in terms of you thinking about, well, here we go. I'm somebody's grandfather.
Well, it's interesting because as I've shared, I was a teen dad. I became a dad just before I turned 17, and I didn't really think about being a grandparent when I was young. Uh, and of course, I threatened my daughter, and I said, "You can call me a hypocrite if you want, but I'm not going to, you're going to be married. You're not going to take the path that I did." So I didn't really think about it initially, but as she got older and got married and so on, I began to think about it. I actually could have very easily been a grandfather in my early 40s. Just so happens that my daughter was a little bit older when she got married, and then I think the average age of motherhood at this point is 26,
Mm.
and she was older than that, and so I actually could have been a grandfather much younger.
So what are some of the challenges of being a young grandpa? How do you feel about interacting with your grandchildren, being a young guy?
Part of it is, I guess I would still call them my prime working years now. I lead fathers and families, and that is not an easy job. That's it's a job I love. Yeah, I tell anyone it is the best job I've ever had. But it can be pretty taxing. And then, I serve on 6 boards of directors, write a weekly column for the Indianapolis Reporter, and so my time is very valuable. And as you alluded to, I'm somebody who likes to be in the bed early, and fortunately, when the grandkids come and spend the night, which is not infrequent, I
Yeah.
they spend the night at least once a month. That's helpful. That their bedtime, my bedtime is the same as theirs. So put them down, I go to sleep. But I love hanging out with them to watch them develop at almost 3 and almost 4. Uh, it's pretty cool.
So is there a challenge for I think we've all seen it where maybe let's say you're a young grandfather like you, do you overhelp sometimes because you're either number one, able to help, or if you have a young son or daughter as a parent, maybe you feel like they need more help and maybe, kind of over involvement or kind of trying to run the show or take up that slack. Is that a thing? Have you ever experienced that?
I so it is a thing. I have not personally experienced it. My daughter, so like I said, she and her husband, my son-in-law, will be celebrating 10 years of marriage this year. My grandson, who's the older of the two, will only be 4 this year. So they had quite a while to be married before they started having kids, and I made up in my mind when they got married that I was not going to be that in-law.
Yeah.
And so unless something went very, very wrong, I was it's their life, their marriage. I was not going to be overbearing in that way, even though I absolutely am a very, very proud helicopter parent, both
Yeah.
with my eldest and with the two younger ones. In fact, I like to call myself, for our military folks out there, I like to call myself a Black Hawk parent. I wasn't a
Black
helicopter
Hawk.
parent. I'm a Black Hawk parent. But I was not going to be, the equivalent sort of father-in-law. And so no, I don't. And by the way, if I ever did sort of slip into that, my daughter would not hesitate to very very nicely let me know.
Hey, nothing wrong with a little helicopter parenting once in a while. I mean, we all want to make sure that everyone is taken care of. And, I imagine that's a thing. Let's talk more about it in terms of not just, I mean, I love hearing these stories, but maybe for the benefit of anyone, we want our show to be practical in terms of usability and things that people can use. If there are boundaries issues for someone like this kind of thing, where it's like overparenting as a young grandparent, or the other extreme of like letting them take care of it because you're still trying to live your life, or maybe you work still like you and still in your prime years. Those boundaries issues, what are some things that people can do to get past that in their parenting relationships?
Yeah, I think one, certainly communication is crucial. Ensuring that your children who are, parents, younger parents, feel comfortable in having a conversation with you if necessary. I think another thing is self-awareness. I've had my time. I've only had one more in the nest now, and
Hmm.
he's a junior in high school, starting his second semester junior year. I am aware that I'm the grandparent, not the grandparent. I've got one more to raise, and then he's out. And so I'm mindful of that. Thirdly, I think again, just kind of the circumstances of life. It's funny. My daughter will not infrequently ask me what I'm doing on a Friday or Saturday night. I'm only saying I'm a young unmarried man. What could I possibly, in my mind, young,
Yeah.
what could I possibly have going on? It's interesting, but of course, I think she knows that dad is going to say yes. But communication, self awareness, and just making sure that you insert yourself into your grandchildren's lives, but not be overbearing.
Yeah. You're listening to Daddy Issues. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecasts, radar, and Indiana sports all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere.
And now let's get back to daddy issues. In our world of blended families and different age levels and different, all kinds of shapes and colors that families are today, there are many times I would imagine you have grandchildren and you still have one in the nest. So
Yes.
he's going to be there in the same room, and you're all like, well, I'm your father and I'm your grandfather, but I'm still not an old guy. And not to
Mm-hmm.
keep harping on that, but it's like, as the old stereotype goes, when my mom sits there and looks, oh, those are my grandchildren, and that's my children over there. We're all grown up, and it's like, it's kind of we all fit like Russian nesting dolls, right?
Right.
But but is there any kind of awkwardness or strangeness that comes as a feeling of being in the same kind of, raising them up in the same house as you, and then you also got grandchildren?
Before my daughter, the middle daughter, middle child, went off to college. Of course, she was there along with my son, and they're a good aunt and uncle. My daughter goes by TT, by the way, and my son goes by Uncle Jay. His
Okay.
name's Justin. Although I do have to say that Of the two, my son is the much more involved than the much more involved uncle than my daughter is and aunt, and so he's a big kid, literally and figuratively, very very playful. And so I don't think there's any real awkwardness. I'll tease him every now and then, and tell him my grandkids are my favorite, but he just kind of rolls his eyes. He knows I'm joking with him.
Yeah.
If anything, it's interesting. My eldest daughter sometimes wants to be my little girl again, which is
Yeah.
interesting. She'll lay her head on my, shoulder or something like that, or she'll say, well, remember, I'm still your daughter.
Uh-huh.
I was teasing her. She posted on Facebook, well, I wished her a happy birthday on her birthday, and she said, "Thanks, Dad. What am I getting?" And I posted back, "I don't know. Ask your husband." you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. They never cease being your kids.
Yeah. For sure. And at Christmas time, we had all of our family together, the multi levels. So it's a wonderful time. At that point, we have my niece, who I referred to earlier. She's such a, at a certain point, we all become grown-ups. And she's an attorney. I think I said 45. She's probably 40, let's say 43 this year. So, I mean, we're more like cousins than I am like her, level up. That's
Right.
what was created out of my mom being a young grandparent. Um, and those kind of differences in the quote unquote traditional, age levels, those can work out great if there are good communication habits, like you said, good boundaries set up. And hey, we didn't ask to be as hip and cool as we are. Look at us. We've got a young vibe. We've got
Right.
young energy. And so there's nothing wrong with being a grandpa. Look at you. You're wearing Under Armour gear. You're looking good. You don't have Werther's in your pocket. You,
No, it's funny. Yeah, we have all those stereotypes. When we're growing up about grandparents. Whether it's walking with a cane or having difficulty getting up out of a seat, especially if it's a couch,
yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
And, the groans and the aches and pains, and certainly I do have some of those. Part of that is a youth spent playing sports and so on. But yeah, in my mind at least, I'm not. I don't feel 53. I mean, I remember being a teenager, and even in my early to mid 20s, thinking about being 53, 54. At the time, I would have thought, "Oh my God,
I
when's
know.
it brave and all that." And now it's like, yeah, no, I'm feeling
Yeah,
pretty good. I'll as long as the good Lord allows me to feel this way, I'll take it.
yeah, I agree. I can't imagine what I thought a 57-year-old person would look like, but I feel fine the way I am. So let's talk a little bit. This is Jason Acquisto, Larry Smith here. It's Daddy Issues, a podcast from Fathers and Families Center of Indianapolis. We're talking about being a young grandparent. Can you talk a little bit about your clientele, the people that you work with, the young men that you are equipping with fatherhood tools and giving them ways to succeed as fathers? How can this subject matter address them, directly?
Yes, it's a wide range, and so this is our 31st year. We've served approximately 22,000 men in the last 31 years. And until about a decade ago, there was actually an age limit. It was 16 till about 27 ish. And a decade ago, long before I got there, I've only been with the organization a little bit more than a year and a half now. The organization decided to do away with the age limit. So I joined in August of 2022. In my time, I know there has been at least one gentleman in his 70s. And so what is a father? I always like to say that I am not Maury Povich. If you come to us and you say you're a dad, you're a dad.
Yeah.
Uh, we do know though that we have grandfathers. We have, of course, stepdads, uncles, brothers who are any male who is acting in the role of a father
Right.
is welcome to come to fathers and families. We serve, certainly a majority African American clientele, but we're not. That's not a requirement by any means. And we actually just today we've had one of our largest cohorts ever, about 37, 38 men in the class.
Nice.
which was unbelievable. It's a great, great problem. And we're outgrowing our space, and it's a great problem to have. Finally, we address what we call the 4 Ps. We want to help men become a better person, parent, partner, provider. Person. What does it mean to be a man in the 21st century? And so, one module that we do is maleness to manhood. What does it mean just to be a man? Secondly, the parent. What does it mean to be a father in the 21st century? Most of our clients, like me, grew up in a home wherein their father was not present, or at least not present most of the time. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad father; just they didn't have a full-time role model. Although I will add, there's a nuance here. There's a difference between not being in the home and not being present in your child's life. You can be present in your child's life and not be in the home. In fact, I could tell myriad stories about men who were physically present in the home, but not emotionally available to their children.
Great point.
Thirdly, partner. We strongly emphasize the importance of having a good relationship with your children's mother, even if you're no longer intimately involved. And that's everything from simply getting along and how to talk to each other to dealing with issues around child support and all of that. And then the last P is provider. The average income of the men when they get to us is less than $9,000 a year, less than $9,000 annually. The overwhelming majority are either unemployed or underemployed. And so they want to get to that provider, that last P, very, very quickly. But we understand, given the demographics of the men we serve socioeconomically, that's not frequently going to work out well. So we go through all these other classes or modules for 3 weeks in our Strong Fathers program. Then we get to the provider part, and we can connect them to an employer. We can get them certification in all the skilled trades or CDL or forklift driving.
Yeah, so that's the real life application. Once they get to that 4th P, then you're ready to put things to work in terms of applying the principles and the underlying character building aspect into, like, okay, so now we go. Now we live life. We engage with these things that we've equipped you with. So how's everything shaping up for, like you said, you're about a year and a half in the job. Is it everything you'd hoped for, or how's everything looking for 2024?
Yeah, it's definitely, of course, in many ways, I didn't know quite what to expect, even though I'd been involved with the organization as a volunteer. I'd been on the strategic planning committee back in 2011, I want to say it was. But this is my first time leading an organization, president and CEO. And, you talk to other folks and who are in that role, who have been in that role a while, and I still do that. Certainly have mentors who I talk with to help me sort of think through things. And then I've got a great staff as well that who really can compensate, for the areas in which I'm weak and so on. But in terms of expectations, I didn't know completely what to expect. I had some idea. But long story short, it's like I said, the best job I've ever had, my favorite job, certainly the one at which I have worked hardest. I keep thinking, I'm responsible for people getting their paychecks every 2 weeks, and that's a daunting thought sometimes.
Yeah,
so
right.
I just want to make sure that I'm doing all I can, and then obviously to serve the men we serve, who in many cases are not in all, certainly, but in many cases very vulnerable. We have a high percentage of returning citizens, and so we want to make sure that we help them reintegrate. Because we also go to the penal institutions and work with men who are 90 days or fewer from being released. And so a great deal of responsibility, but also a great deal of joy.
That's such a big part of it. I'm glad you mentioned the part about going in for soon to be released inmates. That's one of the hardest transitions, I believe. You can attest for sure that you've seen men try to, you don't just jump back into the world, and especially jump back into a family situation, I would imagine. I was going to mention, as we kind of circle back to the grandparent, you mentioned something that triggered my mind, because I grew up in a household without for most of my life without a father, but with a grandfather that was and he was of the expected age. He was 70s, right? But I mean, it was such a I know what it was. You were alluding to all the uh, the men that you help, everyone who acts as a father. I would say that in so many ways, my grandfather, my mother's father, salt of the earth, big father figure, big influencer, and all those things. So I'm glad you mentioned that you serve at
Mhm.
Fathers and Family Center. Anyone who acts in that capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. And similar to you, my parents were divorced when I was very, very young. My father was not involved in my life for the most part. And my grandfather, it turns out my grandmother's second husband, he is the only man who I consider to be my grandfather, even though his blood doesn't run through my veins. He is the one who was there.
Yeah.
And Chester Rowan, it was Vivian and Chester Rowan. I named my middle daughter after my grandmother Vivian. So
Yeah.
Vivian and Chester Rowan. But yeah, he was a very, very good role model for me. So I can definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so, if you talk to the people who deal with young people who have challenges, may be involved on the wrong side of the law and so on, and you ask them what is the key to helping these young men either steer clear of those challenges or to get them back, and it is the involvement of an adult, typically a male adult, whether it's if the father is not there, a stepfather, a coach, a minister,
Mhm.
a neighbor. Pastor Jeffrey Johnson of Eastern Star Church here, the largest African American church in Indianapolis. I'm a member of that church. He talks about a neighbor of his who acted like a father to
Yeah.
him. And when he took his children places, he took Pastor Johnson along. Of course, he wasn't a pastor then as a kid. That would have been weird.
Little
But a young
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Johnson,
He was a little Jeffrey. Yeah.
he took him along, and just to hear him tell those stories. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, to the extent that we can get men, irrespective of whether they are a blood relative,
Mhm.
men of character, men of caring, who can get involved in the life of a child, certainly female children as well.
Sure.
But to help young men boys grow into young men, grow into older men.
Yeah, that's such a big aspect of it. So again, as long as we're shouting out, I want to say, James Powell Brown, that's my grandfather, granddaddy, and he was every bit the granddaddy. And I don't think granddaddy, the name would fit with you because you're a G-Paw, right?
Yeah, that's right. G Paul
Yeah.
for life.
Yeah. So that's cool. So
I think it's been great. It's funny with my daughter, my eldest daughter says that I am not the same man I was when she was a child.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
Either when it comes to my younger two or with the grandchildren, but they just get away with murder, and I'm guilty. I'll cop to that charge. But I tell her it's for two reasons. One, I was such a young father that I think in retrospect I was frequently trying to assert myself
Mhm.
as her dad, not her big brother. I am your
Mhm.
father, not your big brother. Whereas now, even though I don't always feel old, is anybody bleeding? No. Okay, great. You just do whatever
Yeah,
you're doing.
I chalk that up to having a little more faith in them. Somebody
Yeah.
might say, "Oh, you just don't want to go see about it." No, I think I have trust in them. I just
Yes.
have more faith. That's what it is. Listen, I think this has been a great conversation. I'm looking forward to our next one. Larry, I hope you have a great January. I hope it warms up here in Indianapolis pretty soon.
Let's hope so.
Otherwise, we'll see everyone next episode and take care. Thank you, sir.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Daddy Issues. Be sure to connect with us on social media. Feel free to email us, dads@thedaddyissuespodcast.com. Daddy Issues is a podcast from the Fathers and Family Center of Indianapolis, Indiana. To learn more about the programs of Fathers and Family Center, visit fathersandfamilycenter.org.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.